All right, coach, coming off a quarterfinal win over Providence. Amazing last game to have at Toscano. Now you guys are headed to the TD Garden for a matchup in the 4 o'clock game against Boston University. Just want to get your thoughts as you head back up to the Garden and this matchup against BU.
Yeah, well, we're certainly excited to be going back to the Garden. We've only had two players who have been there in Hudson and John, but we've got a group in there that's really looking forward to competing for the Lamarillo Cup. We know we've got a great challenge in front of us with Boston University. Since Yegorov's come in, he certainly has stabilized their goaltending. They have a freshman defenseman in Cole Hudson who's got 40 points and most likely is the rookie of the year, I would think, in our league. You have two 20-goal scorers up top. So there's not a lot of holes in the Terriers, that's for sure. So we'll have to play extremely well on Thursday to advance to the final game.
Awesome. All right, we'll open up for questions. If you guys just use the React, we'll get to you. Dom, you want to start us off?
Yeah, Kath, how are you?
Good, Dom. I apologize. I know I owe you a phone call.
No. This will do. I
All right.
didn't want to make you chew your cabbage twice, so this will do. Old baseball phrase. Um, I know we've talked a lot about Huddy all year, and rightfully so. But it kind of his running mate, John Spetz, as you mentioned, a veteran of this tournament. Can you talk about what he's meant to the team? Maybe some of it's behind the scenes because the stat line is different for him. But what has he meant to this group, and particularly in terms of establishing the culture that I know he and Huddy wanted to establish back in the summer?
Yeah, and first of all, I think that was the main thing. When he and Huddy decided to come back, I thought that was certainly a big step forward for us as far as this year was concerned. That being said, Dom, more specifically to John, we had four new defensemen coming in. Tom Messinio, of the six that are playing right now, was the only returner. And I think he's been like a second coach on the ice for them. He's really understands the way we want to play. He is always trying to help them out and teach them the little nuances that he's learned over the years that help within our system. And he's been a sounding board for them when they get frustrated. And that happens throughout a season. So I can't, like, it's really hard to put into words how important he's been to our program. Not just this year, but throughout his 5 years here.
Thanks, Mike.
Dan, go ahead.
How is Hudson doing after getting hurt last game?
Yeah, he's still, you know, I think he's going to be a game time decision. He's getting better every day, but, we'll see. I don't have a definitive answer on him right now.
Then I know he played most of the rest of the game, but is Caden all right?
He's
Caden all right? He's
he's
fine.
yeah.
Um, not that you guys don't roll lines or you're not willing to play all four, but this year that top line's really separated itself in terms of points and production, which is a little unusual for your team. Usually you're pretty balanced, 1 through 4, but just what's it like to have a line that you can put out there and there's a pretty good chance that they're gonna be able to put the puck in the net?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have a line with that much skill on it. But that being said, I think Whitcomb's line, if you look in the second half of the year, you know, I don't know what they have for goals, but they're 20, probably mid 20s, Tattle has 17 goals, Percival has 9. So that line almost has 30 goals. And as I've said many times before, Sitar's line, uh, they had their game-winning goal in the Connecticut Ice Championship game. So they're a line that also was very, contributes. So I think one of the reasons that makes that top line so good is we don't have to rely on them. We don't have to play them every third shift. Or, we don't feel like we can score. I think when they're getting on the ice, a lot of times they're rested and they're ready to go. And then their talent, their hard work and their skill takes over.
What have you seen from Jake Percival recently? It's been a little bit since he's scored, but just what have you seen?
I thought he was excellent against Providence. I really did. He's always been uh, one of our first guys over the boards killing penalties. He's got an elite stick. He skates well, but I thought he created a lot as well against Providence on Friday night. So we need that line. Like that's an important line for us because a lot of times, they get a tough matchup too. Like I trust them against pretty much any line in the country. So, that's something that's very significant with a team when you can kind of control those types of matchups. Now we'll be the away team on Thursday, but again, it's a nice feeling to know that I trust any line that we have to go out and play against their best.
Awesome. George, we'll jump over to you.
Cool, Coach. Thanks for taking the time today, and congrats on getting to the Garden. You mentioned, that freshman line with Whitcomb. What do they do for the team? That I understand the goal scoring, but I feel like having a freshman line, especially one as potent as them, is something great to have on the team because they're freshmen, they're first year guys, you're having a lot of fun and on this historic run. Is there something where it's beyond the ice, but maybe in the dressing room, maybe on the bench, maybe on the day to day? It's great to have freshmen that are contributors, but also in a way, they keep things light, they keep the team young in a way, maybe.
Yeah, to some extent, I think there's a group of them. That's a pretty big class, and I know they're all pretty tight. I think the biggest where I've seen the biggest improvement with that line is defensively. They, earlier in the year, I think they had a hard time picking up some of the concepts, but right now, I trust them implicitly against any line that they have to go up against. They've done a really, really good job of understanding how to take away time and space in our defensive zone, and in turn use that in the transition game. So they've really grown up quite a bit, and they're a line that I could see, being a major factor in this tournament.
Awesome. And how were they able to kind of grab that? Was that a certain coach pulling them aside, really teaching them defense and film, or is it just, time on ice, more games, more all of that? They picked it up eventually. Like, who was kind of crucial for them to pick that up?
Yeah, I know they spend a lot of time with Nick Peruzzi going over film every week, but to their credit, they love playing hockey. They're here all the time. They want to get better. So a lot of them, I got to give it is on them. They're always looking to improve. So, but they do meet with Nick, I know, once a week, and they go over their shifts. So I think that's also really important part of their development.
Awesome. And last one from me, Ryan Tattle. I know he didn't start this season with an A, but he got it mid-year. Can you kind of take me through that story? Was that your call? Was it the team? Was it the captains? How did that come to be? And why, in your eyes, did he earn that right to have an A put on a sweater mid-season?
Well, he was very close to being named one earlier in the year. I don't make that call. I let the players vote. And he was very close during the vote, but we had three and we were going to go with three. And then I think his commitment, how hard he's worked throughout the year. But I think what really put it over the top was we're out in Wisconsin, and he was literally puking in between periods and still managed to play 18 minutes that night. And I think a lot of guys, Hudson Shandor came to me and said, as a team, we've talked about it and we'd like to do this. So I said, I've never done it in my career, but if you feel that strongly about it, it's your team. I'm happy to do it. So that's that's the genesis of that story.
That's awesome. That must have felt really gratifying.
Well, for him, I'm sure. Yeah, I was happy for him too. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Brian, we'll jump over to you.
Hey, Cav, how we doing?
Good, Bri. How are you doing?
Good. Jersey, it's good to see you. I'm happy you guys got in. I get to watch you up close.
I know. I wish I had a Brian Boyle center in one of my lines.
Yeah. Thank you. My question's kind of more just for you and your approach as a coach of a program. You've been there a long time, done a great job, but it might be a little long-winded, so bear with me, but the college landscape in all the sports has changed and it's crazy. For you guys to do well this weekend is huge for you and your program. You've had a good year all year, but do do you kind of let the players know exactly like how big this is for UConn in terms of, you get in there, you go to Boston, you win a title, or do they understand like the gravity of it? Do you not want to give them too much or put more pressure on them, or do you think maybe they can handle it, or maybe that's a pregame speech for Thursday, prior to game time, or maybe not? Like, sort of like what's going through your head in terms of how you're going to motivate all these players, or is it, they're self-starters there? From the sounds of it, it's like these guys are pretty much self-starters. They've done a good job of their own getting better. You're afraid to give them too much?
No, I think that's a good question, and I think a lot of my philosophy comes from having worked for Jerry, and you played for him, and you know that we talked about the four majors. We talked about it all the time,
Mhm.
and I've kind of adopted that philosophy myself. I don't. This year, I was posting the pairwise up every week after January 1st. I was like, I want you guys to know where you are. I don't want you come to me at the end of the year and say, "Geez, coach, I didn't know if we had beat Quinnipiac, that would have got us into the tournament." Like I wanted them to know. We talk about the trophies all the time, uh, and now it's become second nature where the players are talking about it. It's not. I don't even have to do it anymore, Bry. They just. I've got really good leadership, and it was no different than when you and Runes were captains and you were letting the younger guys know the magnitude of the game we're playing in. And now I have the same thing here. I've got Hudson and John Spetz. They've played in this tournament. They know, and they're letting the guys know how important it is. That being said, I also will temper that with, it doesn't define who you are as an individual. It defines the 2024-25 UConn hockey team. It doesn't define who you are as an individual. So don't go into that game or this. And if we lose, I'm a failure. That's not the case at all. It's you're a very successful person, and you're in a position that there are so many kids out there that would kill to play in the Garden in a Hockey East championship. And I think that they also there's a balance in life, Brian, which I'm sure you know very well, that uh, you got to be grateful and for the position you're in life in a lot of areas. And yeah, we want to go out and win that because we're competitors. But at the end of the day, I'm really also focused on them being the best human being they can be as well, on and off the ice.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yep.
Eric, we'll jump over to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you again. Congratulations.
Thanks,
Um,
Eric.
just like looking back on that game on Friday, and not to say that that was your end goal, because I know your end goal is to win this weekend and going forward, but um, can you just put into perspective, your goals for this UConn program, what you hope to be, and then to see it kind of play out that way, to be hosting a quarterfinal game in front of that environment in the new building, to be able to win like that with this group of players, a lot of which has been with you kind of in this stretch. Again, not that it's the end, but that must have been gratifying, I would think, for you.
It is. My goals in this program haven't changed since the opening press conference, and it was I want to graduate players, I want to make them better men, and we want to compete for trophies. And I can very confidently say that, well, Hudson and John have graduated from UConn. They're without a doubt better men than when they came here. I can tell you that. Just watching their maturity has been that. That's one of the reasons why you get into coaching. And then two, here we are, Eric. We're playing for a trophy. So we're, I think, accomplishing that. I thought the building and the atmosphere was electric on Friday night. And I've said oftentimes, I think the hardest game to win in this a lot of times is that first one. I mean, BU will probably tell you the same thing. They're going they're in overtime against UMass. I remember many teams that we had at BC where we were the first seed, and that 1-8 game is a hard game to win. You saw it last week. It's just a hard game. Now, once you get to the Garden, it almost feels like the pressure's off, and you just go out and play your game. But getting there, that's a hard game to win. So I was really proud of the way our team responded Friday night, and how we were able to find a way to advance in the tournament.
I know you talked about it post game, and Dan did a good job writing it up, but can you kind of just again put in context what Hudson did for you and what was sort of the talk of whether he was going to come back out? We saw him kind of testing it during the media timeouts, but to come out, I think basically first shift and score, obviously the goal that kind of changed the momentum. That's one of those that goes from, he's obviously a great player to, mystical like stuff.
Yeah, well, it wasn't my call. It was our trainer,
Mhm.
Ed Blair, and Hudson's call on whether they were going to play. And I've always done that throughout my career. I don't make those decisions. I never went to med school. I don't plan on it. And I'll let the experts make those decisions. And Ed, Hudson looked at me and said, "I think I can go, coach." So I looked at Ed, and Ed said, "Yeah, let him try." So that's what happened. In the faceoff, he actually lost the faceoff, but I think Nick Carabin did a great job pinching down as the D. The puck turned over, and it's a good thing that it went to Jake Richard, because if it went to a Providence player, I'm not sure he could have back checked all the way to the net. I don't think he realized, that it still hurt him, because he didn't play again after that shift. But that
Right.
was certainly a momentum changer for us in that game.
hmm One guy I probably haven't asked you about enough is Trey Scott coming in
Yeah.
as a freshman and, running the power play and being involved as he is. What have you kind of seen from him all year long, and especially where he is right now and being such a key piece?
Well, I'd be lying to you if I told you that I saw this in him as a player. One, I never saw him play. I relied totally on Tyler Helton, and he was really pushing for him. And usually I see every one of our kids play. I like to be involved. I don't know if that's just because how I cut my teeth in this business recruiting, that I still like to have a hand in that.
hmm
And I just trusted Tyler, because he said, "We have a chance to get him, but he's got another offer from another school, and we got to make a decision quick." And I said, "All right, if you feel this passionate about him." And he didn't play the first couple of games. Uh, but all of a sudden you're watching him in practice. It's like, wow, this kid has a lot of poise with the puck. This kid defends really well. He makes the game look pretty easy. The next thing you know, he's now quarterbacking our power play, and our power play went from maybe 11% to now at 25. So in the second half of the year, I think he's been an integral piece of that, because he's a very calming influence when the puck is on his stick.
hmm Um, from your experience and from, whether it's obviously John and Hudson having been there, what is kind of the biggest thing you've learned about handling, the building, the environment, the whatever, all that other stuff is, and trying to make it as quickly as possible? I mean, you can say it a million times, right? But there's still the first time you're there, it is a little bit different. So what have you learned about kind of what you say to the guys to help kind of manage that?
Well, we're fortunate here at UConn because we play in the XL Center,
hmm
which is a similar type building to the Garden. I mean, I don't know, the XL Center maybe holds 16,000. I'm not sure, somewhere in there, but we had, we had 11,000 people there for the Providence game this year. So, and then we played out in the Milwaukee tournament
Milwaukee, yep.
pro building. So our kids are familiar with playing in those types of buildings. And I loved going out to Milwaukee because it was all Wisconsin. So we were,
Mhm.
uh, had to play in a very hostile atmosphere. Uh, Similar to the one, Brian, you played in the national championship game out there. It was, so I think those experiences though are good for your team, because when they get to the Garden, when that puck's dropped, a rink is a rink, and it's just gonna. That's how it's gonna. The boys are gonna play hockey, whether it's, you know, these guys have played in the Freitas, the old Freitas, and they've played in the Garden. That they'll adapt pretty quickly.
Mhm. And then I think the last one for me is just Obviously, we've talked a lot about the depth piece and how, the confidence all up and down the card, but is there anyone specific that stands out that we're not asking about enough that you feel like has just been kind of crucial to getting you guys where you are?
I think I don't know if my coaching staff gets enough credit. Like I'm really fortunate with Vince Stiletti, who's done an unbelievable job with the goaltenders here. And you can look back, uh, he's basically tutored, now four kids that have been very successful goaltenders currently in Division I hockey.
Yeah.
Uh, Tyler Helton's been with me for 12 years. Watching his maturity and growth as a coach has been awesome. I can't tell you. And he was so integral when everybody was leaving last year. He kept the calming presence and, nobody panicked. And I think he was really important in both Hudson and John coming back. And then Nick Peruzzi's he's brought a lot of energy and a little different concepts offensively that we haven't had. It was nice to have a different point of view. And, Jacob Pollock is our director of ops. So I think together, I've been really fortunate to have a staff like that. They've made it, I think, a lot easier for not only me, but all our players this year as well.
Very good. Good luck this week, Cap. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, then we'll head to you.
Just on the topic of your staff with Nick specifically, I saw him after the Vermont game and he made a comment about how great Gutterson is because he'd never been there. And I kind of forgot that he's never been in Hockey East and this is
Yeah.
all new for him. Just you kind of mentioned it, but how beneficial is it to have a guy with an outside perspective that isn't a Hockey East lifer like yourself or Tyler?
I think it's so important because let me see, I think this is my 30th year in the league. I was 18 at BC and 12 here, right? So uh, you kind of get conditioned like, well, this is how this team plays, this is how that team plays, and when someone new comes in, they have a different perspective. And I think that's really healthy for your program. And I think it's been great for all of us that he's been able to come in and give a different perspective because he spent most of his career, whether it was in the USHL or at Northern Michigan, and being a Detroit guy, very familiar with the West, but not so much with the East. And I think it's been invaluable to us, Dan.
Then to jump back to a little earlier and not being afraid to talk about trophies and pairwise, but I've seen you guys carrying around the photos of the trophies. Is that something that you borrowed from Dan Hurley, or was that whose idea was that to go with it? That
No, that's something we had years ago. We we always had them up in the locker room, the pictures of the trophies, you know. Um, but this year the captains made one, yeah, with all of them on it. So, but that was mostly Hudson and John. That was not driven by me.